prophecy, we're told that the first three rules are the spell, the ode, and the sweep, which is the spell of 33 years, which is equivalent to the generation. And then the next consideration is you look at the emphases within that generation, and those go by odes, and there's three of them, and the ode and the spell specifically refer to a period of time, and a generation, ideally, it matches 33 years, and an ode ideally matches 11 years, and so that you have, the generation, the equivalent to a generation is called a flame. So you have three flames in every generation. And each flame, if that's those that are born during that ode, then they carry on that light of inspiration that's with that. And so that's the second consideration. The third consideration has to do with a family. A family is like when you have grandparents, parents, and children, and then ultimately the grandfather or grandparent, who's ever in charge, the head, he dies or he retires, and then you basically have a new generation, a new family. And so a sweep is like is 100 years. That's the 99 plus 1 year. Because if you do it without fractions, you say 33 times 3 is 99. And then they say to add 1 to make 100, because the way the Oahspe authors put it, they made it, and they taught the ancients how to do it without fractions. You just add, every so many years, you add a portion to get it, everything back in synchronization. But it's really 33 and a third year, and 11.11111 ad infinitum years for the ode. And the sweep is 100 years. And a sweep, the equivalent to that then is the family, an extended family, we might say. And so that constitutes like the first part of what a prophet of Jehovah would look at. They would look at those things. And then the next, and that's the first consideration of those three. And then you look at the beast side, because the spiritual side, that says, well, this is the inspiration. That's where man's getting inspired to go. And then you have the beast side, which says, well, okay, but this is what you're dealing with. And you're also going to have resistance from the lower grades, the lower tier grades on the tablet of grade and ingrade, which, as you may recall, you have for at the beginning of Cosmin, it was 21 on the lowest level, 13, 7, 3, and 1, corresponding to grade groups 1 through 24, 25 through 34, 35 through 49, 50 through 69, 70 through 99. Well, those in those lower grade groups, they're very resistant to change. Well, it's not that they're resistant to change per se, but it's that they are not so willing to make self-sacrifice, because we're told in Oahspe and through life itself that the only way for progress to occur is through sacrifice. And so each person has to decide for themselves how much they're going to sacrifice. So that has to do with self. Well, and the beast, and what is that? And so we're told in Oahspe, and it may seem kind of confusing to some, and it certainly was to me when I first read it. But the body is the beast, and you have the evil spirits are the beast, and just self is the beast. And what is all this? And all those are actually true, because anything that has form, we're also told, is the beast. Now, the beast isn't necessarily something. It's not something. Well, it's not something to be destroyed because the beast destroys itself ultimately, and the world goes into what we call in the universe, according to physicists, entropy. Everything starts off with a bundle of energy, and it dissipates it over time, and then goes into nothingness. Well, anyway, that's the beast. So the beast destroying itself and all that. Or, well, because our physical bodies come from the Mother Earth, which is the beast, then our physical bodies then will also, that Mother Earth will take our physical body back into the elements to be recycled. Well, so the beast is actually then, well, it's the beast is the outer form. So anything that has outer form. Now you have the soul in, and that's a light. The soul is in the realm of light. It's the interior realm, the inner realm. And the lowest, well, the inner realm consists of you have densities in these interior realms, and the densest of those interior realms is the soul realm. So the soul light, and that corresponds to the Ruch light. And we're told in Oahspe it's called Ruch, R-U-C-H. And this is the soul light. And this is as the soul light manifests, it starts manifesting outward into denser and denser forms. And these denser forms become from Etherian to Atmospherian to corporeal. So what that means is that the densest of all our forms, any form whatsoever, is corporeal. It's the Ruch, the soul, the outwardmost manifestation of soul. Now, just before that manifestation, you have it's very thick. Sergus material is what it is. It's essentially Ruch, darkened Ruch and thickened Ruch, that is very close to crystallization, very close to being able to vibrate on the corporeal level, to have form in the corporeal realm. And so you have spirits who, angels who can do that, can cause this Sergus to form a physical form, and we see it and we go, oh, look at that, there's a spirit or a manifestation or a hallucination, depending upon, the person who's viewing it and their beliefs and everything. But that's the Sergus. Now, mortal has that too, to some extent. Now, some people have it more developed than others, and we're told in Oahspe that, for example, Zarathustra was a suis Sergus. So he had both suis and Sergus. Now, suis, you see, that has to do with the Vas light, which the Ruch light is centered here in the belly, because there's always centers in the body that correspond to all this, and the Vas light corresponds to the heart, and it corresponds to atmospheria, and the Vas light, V-A-S, that's what we're told in Oahspe. That's the light of the intermediate realm, the light of spirit, we might say. And when you can see that, then you have what's called the suis sense. Now, or actually you're called a seer. Now, suis is more than just seership. A suis comprises any perception of the S, of the atmospheria, of the Vas light. And so you can hear, there's people who can hear, but they can't see it. And they call it in parapsychology clairaudience and clairvoyance, being able to see and being able to hear. And there's other senses though too. Some people just feel it, and they react to it. And so, and then there's actually a higher light that's centered up here in the head, and that's called the Shem lights, S-H-E-M. And that's also, those three lights are in Oahspe, and that corresponds essentially to the higher sphere, to the, anyway, so what is the beast in all this? The beast is the outermost form. Yeah, so this beast, the beast then is this outermost manifestation, and when you were corporeans, the outermost manifestation is this corporeal body. Now, when we're in atmospheria, as an atmospherian, our outermost body, natural outermost body, for that stage is the spiritual body and an atmospherian body. But here, for mortals, the natural state is this corporeal body, although we can still be aware of that atmospherian body. And we can also be aware of the this level, the Shem level, the Shemite level, which is the ethi, as they call that ethi, the ethi level. And now, just like the Suis level, in which you can have a seership where you see it, or you have here you can hear it, but maybe you don't see or hear and all that. Well, there's levels like that also in ethi, although it's a bit different. But essentially, when you attain to ethi, then you attain to perceiving not just, well, you can perceive the ethi, but not necessarily the etherian worlds. Or you can glimpse the etherian worlds and not necessarily perceive the ethi very clearly, because the ethi is like the elements of etheria. Just like in corporea, we have elements, that molecules and all that make up our physical being. And so, anyway, so we have these levels, but the outermost form of the natural form, it is always the beast. It's always the most, and because it is it's from the center, it's the furthest most out, away from anything. Now we look at the corporeal world and we see this corporeal world, Earth, and that's Jehovah's, part of Jehovah's body, part of his physical body, and because we can think of the whole universe as being part of his physical body, or his physical body. And he's just so vast we can't comprehend them all. But we can perceive, we can understand that that's his body. And we can come into tune with that body. Now, when we come into tune with that body, there's two ways of coming into the tune to that corporeal body. One way is through the S that we have within our spirit body, or the unseen part of our body. And the second way is through our corporeal, more denser senses. Well, we have 7 chakras, main chakras that the people in India have studied a long time ago and discerned them and everything like that. Well, the fourth one on the bottom ends right here at the heart. And the heart then is also the base of these top 4. And so this is why the heart, it takes, Freud called these 3 things, from where he was coming from, okay, he kind of perceived them, but from sort of like through a dark lens and everything, because he was a meat eater and a smoker and all that. And you cannot have much clarity. The only clarity you get is what the angels bring to you when you're in a condition like that. And even then, you can't necessarily get it real clear as to what's going on. It takes a clean physical body and a pure spirit and a clear mind in order to live. Now anyway, I'm not going to go into birth grade and all that stuff, but anyway, the point being that he called this the id, the ego, and the superego. And but essentially, and some things he got right and some things he didn't. And so, but I'm just going to focus on the stuff where he touched into it, because this might help, to understand that what this does, what we do then in the heart is, because there's 2 ways of perceiving this beast, or I should say the creation, through the beast or through the S. And we take those together here in the heart, and we come up with the unison of them, or the divisiveness of them, depending upon where we are in our grades and how close or distant we are from Jehovah. So anyway, so this beast here, in this level here, the soul level, that's the Rush level. That's the deep level. That's where the density is, and then it's more rarefied up here. And just like in etheria, ethi is, 100% motion. and corporea is 0. Because corporea, remember, is the outermost manifestation of this. This is the Rush. Now, the Rush, now it says in the Tablet of Simoin in Oahspe and elsewhere that through great sacrifice, there are some mortals who can attain to perceive Rush. Now, normally what happens is that, like I said, there's 2 ways of perceiving the beast. Now, you can perceive the beast through the Rush, or you can perceive the beast through what's called the ecstatic state. Now, the ecstatic state is the ring, ring, ring of the chakras. It's the spinning of them, the excitation of them, and it feels absolutely marvelous. Okay, but what it does, though, it's perceiving it through the beast. It's through the corporeal senses. It's perceiving Jehovah's body through the corporeal senses. And what that ecstatic state is actually a union, no matter how short a duration it is, a union with Jehovah's body. And so you had the ascetics of old. They would try. Now, it doesn't just have to move these chakras, the lower chakras. That's the tantra and yoga and all that stuff. They deal with that and all that. But it's very dangerous, and the kundalini and all that, very dangerous. But the idea is that they wanted to get that ecstatic state up into these upper chakras. And this is what Sakaya tried to do, because this is what the priest, the Brahmin priests at that time said, this is what you should be doing. And so he tried to reach that ecstatic state up here, because this, with the crown chakra, I mean, they're all delightful. I mean, now people can get caught into those because people can become addicted to them, just like they can become addicted to any substance that gives them pleasure. Most people know about the psychological experiments, where people or a creature will starve to death by giving himself pleasure and not even eating, if that's what's necessary. And we see that with the alcoholics and drug addicts and all that type of thing. We can see that emphasized in a situation like that. Well, the same thing with the ecstatic state. That can be people can become addicted to that. Well, that's just the ecstatic state. Now, in here is called the beatific state, and we're told in Oahspe that the beatific state, that we want to attain to the beatific state, because it represents the transcendence of the spirit over the corporeal, of the S-man over the beast man, over the animal man. And this sensation is like, it's a quietude. It's like silence. It's like a peace, the peace that passes all understanding, as has been taught in ancient times. Well, that's the beatific state. Well, now there is a higher state up here corresponding to the Sheem light and the Ethi up here, and that's called the celestial state. Now, the celestial state and the not the Rush state, the ecstatic state, they're both movements in a sense, because the ecstatic state is the movement of the chakras, which are the connection to the physical body, and we feel that sensation, and we go woohoo, more, and you get that in the heart, and it's like, okay, well, I'll follow you anywhere, wherever that, or up in here, the people that can speak, and you get enthralled with their speech and all that, can move this chakra here, and well, anyway. But people can become caught in those, depending upon their grade and what they're seeking after and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, this upper state, this celestial one, is all movement. Except for this one, the celestial state doesn't move corporea. Remember, it says in Oahspe that Ethi can move through corporea without disturbing it. Well, actually, it's not, sorry, the other way around. Corporea can go through ethi without disturbing ethi. But ethi always has an effect upon corpor. But it's a very subtle effect. And these chakras are the ones really where you can best feel it from or perceive it from. And well, anyway, but it's an entirely different feeling from the ecstatic state. The state up here is almost indescribable. It's all movement, and yet it's all harmony and everything all just works together. Well, but it's just totally different. There are three different states, and you have this one in here, which basically balances between the two, and it's this stillness. And that's actually the ground or the foundation then for experiencing the celestial state. But here's the thing. Now you can have people that try to go, I want to attain to that state. Well, in the past, it was necessary, for man to aspire to these states, just for their own, because they want, just for their own sake. Otherwise they probably wouldn't even, go toward them. But really what these states are, though, these states are a fruit or a result of serving Jehovah, of keeping in tune with Jehovah. When your physical body, when you're doing things in the physical realm that are in tune, harmony, flow with Jehovah, then you're in the ecstatic state. That comes as a fruit of it. That comes as a part of that state. It's just like you can't buy your way to heaven. It's just the same type of a deal. You can't buy your way to the ecstatic state. There is a way that it can be touched through the chakra, through this chakra here, which gets lower down into the reproductive thing and all that, and people get addicted to that. But that's a lower state, and it keeps their consciousness down in that, and it's not a good thing, because, well, as people will see in time to come. But anyway, if they don't perceive it yet already. Anyway, but so the thing is, through serving Jehovah, now that's the ecstatic state. Now the ecstatic state, Jehovah only gives you the ecstatic state if you're in the beatific state, because, look, the angels of Jehovah, other than if they want to show you what the ecstatic state is, or they want to show you what the beatific state is, or what the celestial state is, then that'll be like a short-term thing or whatever. But the idea is for man to progress to the beatific state. So the angels of Jehovah are not going to help you much in attaining to the ecstatic state, only because it comes as a fruit. It comes as a fruit of trying to serve Jehovah. And when you serve Jehovah, you're going to attain first to the beatific state, essentially. And the ecstatic state's going to be there, but only to the extent that you allow it to take you away from serving Jehovah. Then the angels will step back a pace. And so it's like the beatific state is the angels of Jehovah are there in the beatific state. It's the attainment that they would like, the Jehovah's kingdom would like for man to attain to. Ultimately, we read this in Oahspe about Jehovah's kingdom on earth. So what is serving self then? Well, actually, serving self then is, if we think of the beast as being self, then we serve ourselves by eating. We have to eat. That's the physical form, the body, the beast. We have to take the time to eat. We have to take the time to produce food. We have to take the time to produce shelter. We have to take the time to produce clothing. Which, now, if Jehovah has inspired you to be a weaver, or to be a plant grower of food, or an architect, then it's your delight. Oh, you love doing that. But if that's not what Jehovah is directly inspiring you to do, then it becomes a chore for you. It becomes like it's got to be done, so we got to do it. That's the beastly aspect. But that beastly aspect comes not because necessarily of where we are in our motivation, but because of the social order that's set up. Because the social order that's set up, Jehovah's kingdom, that's where we're all aiming toward, Jehovah's kingdom on earth, as it is in heaven. So we are going to be this mortal manifestation of it. And that means that having a social order where people are actually laboring in those fields where they love to be challenged in those fields, where they love to labor in those fields. But we're not there yet. So we have to, by necessity, we have to take care of the beastly needs ourselves. So that's a labor. This is, and it ladens us. That's being called heavily laden. We do that, and as best we can, we do it without complaint, because that helps. It actually helps. It makes that, for those who come after, it makes it a bit easier for them to, instead of having to repeat that thing, to actually move it a little bit further on, upward and onward. So, this beast now, if here in this social order, now this social order that we have, it's a republic social order. Basically around the world, it's a republic social order. Now when they set up the republic, there were at least two things that were intended by Jehovah and through God's kingdom. And one of them was so that man had the freedom of conscience to serve Jehovah in his own way. So that's freedom of worship. And the second issue is that the power for governance would be moved from a king, a monarchy, to the people are going to govern themselves. So at least those two things. Now but what they didn't say was everything else. Okay, how the people want to set up their republic, that was up to those people who set up the republic. So we had here in Gautama, the very first republic. Now it was set up for the inorganic first resurrection. And that was actually another reason for the republic, was to make it so that the inorganic first resurrection could prosper and not have a king or somebody say, or the state, hey, I'm going to take your property away and use it over here for my purposes, or this and that and the other thing. And so they had property was very important to them. Because the monarchs in the past, it was all belonged to the monarch, and the monarch was, if you had a selfish monarch, what could you do? And everything. So they set it up, and they basically enshrined in a constitution the republic social order of capitalism, essentially, the market system and private property and all that. Now, that was sort of an outcropping of what it was in the European system. So and it wasn't just in the European system, because they had it in other places as well, all the way around the world, because it's the beast. It's a system of the beast. But the founders here wanted to regulate the beast. They wanted to make it so that it was hard for the beast to squash the rights of the minorities within the larger republic social order. But they still kept that framework of capitalism, of private property, and basically the system is based on the inorganic first resurrection, which is for self. And the capitalism is based on, and with the free market system and everything, is based upon the notion that if I labor to serve your needs, I'll get compensated for that, and then I can purchase things to fulfill my needs, and it'll all work out by exchanging money, passing around money, and everybody will get a share, and it's more equitable, or so they thought, to have a system like that, because it was better than the system that was before. Now, we're told in the Oahspe that that system will eventually be insufficient, be proved insufficient to the peoples of the earth. Peoples of the earth will say, we want something higher, something that will fulfill our spirit, something that will fulfill our heart. And it's because the inorganic first resurrection, because that system is set up on serving the beast, whatever is nurtured will grow. And so, therefore, the beast grows within that system, and it can't be changed, it can't be turned around. This is what it says in Oahspe, and that's why it can't be turned around. Because whatever is nurtured will grow, and they're nurturing the beast. The beast will grow in that system because it's a system set up for the beast. So a replacement has to come, but it doesn't have to be, well, let's put it this way. When there was a change from monarchy to republic, that caused violence and war and so forth, and essentially by the old guard, by the ones that had stake in the old system, in the monarchical system, which, by the way, is the grade of the people, was 1 to 24. They can sustain a monarchical system on that tablet of grade and in-grade. The next level up, they can sustain a republic social order, and that's from grade 25 to 34, because they're willing to serve some extent in order to, mostly they want to serve themselves, but in order to do that, they realize they have to give this and that, and they have to give up some stuff and do certain things. And so there's sort of like a payoff or a trade-off and all that stuff. Well, anyway, but the changeover to that, from someone who had all total absolute power, which was the monarchy, or at least that was the claim, to give up that power, it was, and the aristocracy and all that, they weren't willing to give up power, and so you had, by and large, they weren't. So you had this conflict and everything. But we're coming into a time now where it's a bit different, and there needn't be violence. But remember those three first three rules of prophecy: the spell, the ode, and the sweep. That's on one side, and then the second consideration then is the beast, and the beast in man, and how the beast is going to respond. Because this one over here with the spell and the ode and the generation, that's talking about the highest, the inspiration that we're moving toward. And when you look at the beast side, that's the one that are going, well, as long as I get mine, maybe. And I mean, because sometimes that's maybe that's the best you can hope for. Is it's for them to be pacified to somehow or some way that they're going to acquiesce to it. And so how that comes about and everything like that. Well, we're coming into like a transition period. But the thing I was mentioning about the beast is serving the beast is initially to come out of that system, because it says, and we learned from in Oahspe, and it's very true, that we have two governments. Man can have two governments. You can have the government of Jehovah and the government of man. But as the question is posed in Oahspe, man, why would you have two governments? There should be aught but one government, the government of Jehovah. And so how do you get there? As we turn to Jehovah, Jehovah will help us to perceive how to get there. And there are steps and plateaus and gradations and all these ways to go forward toward it. And basically it has to do with living in a way where the Jehovah's kingdom is increased rather than subdued or set aside for whatever reason. But initially, this requires, to some extent, it requires serving more self than a person would want to. And by this, I mean exactly what we said earlier about if you're a farmer, that's great. That's what Jehovah inspires you to do. And if you're a weaver, that's great. And a cloth maker, fantastic. And an architect, that's fine. But if you're not in those, but you still we have to go back to the rudiments. We have to go back to the core of what is required for man to live a good corporeal life here. And the core things are food, clothing, and shelter. And this is, Oahspe says that as well. And those things, that fulfills our beast. But our spiritual needs, our soul needs and all that, that's more than that. So this is where the sacrifice comes in. The sacrifice comes in on doing those things that we're not, we don't particularly, we see it has to get done, so we do it. But it isn't something that, I want to be a mathematician or an artist or a singer or whatever it may be. And you can't make a living doing that. Well, then, you have to decide it's between each person and Jehovah how they proceed. But in proceeding toward Jehovah's kingdom, it means finding those rudiments, getting to the core of things. And what's at the core of things, and how we move that forward. And that means sacrificing. That means people having to do those things. But that can only come about if people do that voluntarily, from inside them. And they say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and they're resolved to do it. And
they're not doing it for their own sake.
Yeah, they're not doing it for their own sake.
They're doing it because there's a family and there's a community and there are needs.
Well, that's right. That's right. Whatever it is that inspires a person so that they can, within themselves, withstand the tests that are going to come on account of this. Just because a person says, okay, well, we're going to grow our own food, we're going to build our own house, we're going to make our own clothes, just because they say that doesn't mean that there's not challenges in making food and clothes and all that. The challenges are there because that's the way Jehovah made creation, was for people that are in that field to have labor, joyous labor for them, all these challenges. But for somebody who isn't that, it's like, oy vey, another brick on the back, or on the load on the back or something. But it's
about 5 or 6, 8 hours of this stuff I have to get done before I can get to the real stuff I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the sacrifice. That's the sacrifice that we do in order to live Jehovah's kingdom on earth here. As best we can. And it doesn't, however we do that, however Jehovah inspires us, the highest, best way, that's the hope that that more and more will be doing that. And, Jehovah has workers. He has workers in certain areas doing certain things for certain reasons. One of those is the communications area. It's very important for Klausman, for one world. And so the internet and the World Wide Web and all this and the technologies that actually help those who help man to do these beastly chores, to shorten that time. Now you're still going to have people who like to do it sort of the old-fashioned way. And that's good because they're in that field. They're the ones who are actually, inspired to do that. And so they say, well, yeah, we don't need to have this, and that, and the other thing. We can do it this way, and this is, the joy of doing it. So, but for those who have to deal with the beast, so you have these ameliorations for man, as these time savers to help him to this and do that. So we have running hot water, so we don't have to go to the stove and put the pot on and go, go to the well and take up water and put it in the pot and start a fire and get it hot and all that. No, we just want to turn on the hot water, and we got, hot water, or in the winters, can be very important for a lot of people. But anyway, so this is all a part of that, of movement toward Jehovah's kingdom on earth. And so even though we might not be able to do that which we feel, I really would like to do this, I got to do this and that and the other thing, really, by accepting what Jehovah has given us to do. Now, he might say, well, don't do that, do this. Well, then by going along with that, then we're following Jehovah. He might say, yes, well, keep going in this because this is something good is going to come from this in a way that, and he might even show you what that way is, or at least a glimpse of part of it, why it should be that way, because he always gives signs and presentiments. And so, like I couldn't say to someone, well, this is what you should be doing, because only it's between themselves and Jehovah, and I'm not wise enough to perceive what that is. Now, there are some who have that talent, and they might to some extent hear it even corporeally, because there's angels up there, that are high raised, and they can look at you and know right away, oh, that's your field right there, and this is your field. And they might not even say that to you, but when they're grouping people together or whatever, and you just kind of go along with it, and then you're there, and you're amidst all that, and you go, wow, what a joy, fantastic. And you didn't pick it, but someone who perceived picked it, because they were actually being a hand of Jehovah at that point. They were an extension of Jehovah's hand, or a manifestation of Jehovah's hand helping. So, we can perceive of ourselves too as doing that. So if we have to do these beastly things, now we have to do these beastly things, remember, because the social order is not set up for Jehovah's kingdom on earth. It's set up for the Uzzians, if you want to say it that way. It's set up for the inorganic first resurrection. Those who want to, myself, let me get my little plot here, and and if you got, the money and this and all this, and you got this and all that. And that was okay for the time. You see, now there was a time and a place for the money system back in the time of Cephas. It got people to desire this, and so they would work hard to get that. Okay? And so the idea was to help them to stop being lazy, because why? Because the natural order of man is, what do they say? Laziness is one of the attributes of a natural man. And so, but the spirit, and that's because we're down, the Rush and the animal is in nature is from here down, and up here is the S nature, the spiritual nature. And so, this is stillness, and this is all motion. So the spiritual man, he's always moving, always doing, always wanting to do something, this, that, and the other thing. And in Klausman, actually, we have to we'll learn to balance those out. But in the social order, the way that it's set up, you see, it's set up for then this, to go and to have the property and the money and all this, the whole system that is set up for that. Except when the great of the people start saying, well, this isn't enough. This isn't, we need something more. It's not feeding my spirit. Man, it's not feeding my spirit. It's not feeding my brother's spirit, my sister's spirit, my family spirit, our community spirit, our national spirit. It's not feeding it. and so we want to see this fed. And so how do we feed that? How do we nurture that? How do we get a better social order? That's the question that's facing man. And now they're not going to find it through just one person. No, it's going to come through all kinds of different people. And out of that, people will say, oh, this is good, and that's really good, and that's fantastic, and that not so much. But they do have that point. And then you see, and from that will ultimately come a better social order and movement toward Jehovah's kingdom. And so we have to consider where we are and consider we have this beast. We have this physical beast, and if we try to live Jehovah's kingdom right now, right where we are, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do it even for a small group, because the only sustainment that we get is from Jehovah's heaven. Now, Jehovah's heaven, it's not necessarily from the social order, but when you say from Jehovah's heaven, that means also Jehovah moving through others around you, because that's, and you have this need, and it comes to you. Somehow it comes to you. Well, that's Jehovah's, hand in there doing something on a physical level. That's here. Even so, so that's, so we have the beast. We're going to live with the beast. Everyone who's born here in corporate has to live with the beast, has to do with the beast on some level or other. And so, anyway, so that's what I was thinking about. I had inspiration regarding that this morning and thought I'd share it here with the group.